Okay, can you hear me on this microphone? Yeah, okay, wonderful. Hello, good evening everyone. Sorry, good afternoon. This microphone isn't working for me, so I hope that if I sort of bend down here, you will be able to hear me. Welcome to this event, a social market economy that cares. My name is Jack Parrock. I'm a Brussels-based independent presenter and conference host, and I'm delighted to be here to host this event for us this afternoon, running into this evening. I'll try this microphone again. Is that working now? If I move it, there, very nice, sort of pin there. So welcome to this event. It's wonderful to see everybody here. Welcome to the European Parliament. We're going to try and move quite quickly. We have a lot of ground to cover. There is interpretation in German, English, French, Spanish, Croatian, Italian, Dutch and Polish. And welcome to everybody who is joining us on our live stream. We'll get straight on with it. We've started ever so slightly late because of a lot of announcements, especially within the EPP Group going on here in the European Parliament today. But to open our event, EPP Group Chairman Manfred Weber, thanks for being with us.
Thank you so much and welcome. On behalf of the EPP Group, as Group President, I welcome all of you and I thank you so much for joining us today in our event for social market economy in today's time, in today's Europe. It's an honor to have you here, and I first want to thank our commissioners. Margaritis is next to me, also Dubravka will join us afterwards, all the speakers who are with us, that they are present. And I want to thank also Cindy and Dennis for their great contribution. We are proud to have such a strong team on social issues inside of the EPP family, who organized this and presented this event. The idea was that we are coming together in a moment of time where we are discussing about the next 5 years, because now the election campaign will start. The citizens will have a say about, the majorities will decide about the priorities for the future, and then we will pick up the ideas of the people and will deliver afterwards. And this is a moment of time where we can change directions, people can change directions. And that's why the debate about what social means in today's Europe, what are the priorities from our point of view, is more important than in normal times in a way, because we are again preparing the next 5 years. So thanks so much. And if you allow me, I want today to use the possibility of translation and to speak in German, if you allow me. Then I will continue in my mother tongue. So please use your headphone if needed. Ich möchte uns daran erinnern, dass
I would like to remind everyone that the social dimension is something that has been at the forefront since the foundation of the EU after the Second World War. As Christian Democrats, this was the North Star to try and find an answer in this post-world post-war world, as well as to combat hunger. We wanted to create economic prospects, and this was a real promise post the Second World War. This is an incredible success story, and I think we can all be very proud of what we have been able to achieve. In just a few months, a few years, this economic model was flourishing. Now, it was only possible to be this successful because of the social market economy. Not only did this allow competitiveness, not only did it look at economic perspectives and aspects, but it also looked at the social side of things. And that's why the success story is as great as it is. And these are values that guide us even today. The economy must work for the people and not the other way around. This also looks at Christian values, subsidiarity, solidarity. And this is an economy that protects property, but at the same time talks about property that serves the common good. This is an economy that strengthens the working class, the middle class. A strong middle class is something that is the strength of this economic structure. And that's where we have Christian democratic thinking, Christian citizens. And it's not about creating class distinctions, but building bridges across classes. It's about economic freedom. It's not just about national interests, but in fact European interests. And this is what has led to the solutions that we have today. That is the structure that we use to inform our decisions within the Christian Democrat movement. In the recent years and decades, especially against the background of the fact that Europe is strong economically, at the same time, we have also been able to ensure equality and fairness in our society. That's not always the case in the US and in other parts of the world. Now, if we can say that this is a strong foundation, we can be proud of it. So the question is, what are the tasks now before us? 20% of EU citizens say that poverty is part of their reality, that social exclusion is also their reality. Now, it's not just about social issues, but it's also about democratic questions. So, and we have to take this up. We have to otherwise we will end up losing the social aspect. This has to do with education, but as well as classic social policies as well. Now, when we're talking about companies who want to work in Europe, invest in Europe, but at the same time, we have strong trade union structures nationally as well. So these are aspects that we have to balance. We have to make sure that both partners are part of the discussion and they have a balanced role. We also have to look at new ways of working. This requires further discussion. It's sad to see that the proposals from the Commission or regulation of platform work have been struck down. It was not possible to bring this regulation to fruition, despite of the fact that things have improved on the social front. But this distinction between those who are employed and those who are self-employed, there is still a gray area, and this is something that must be solved at European level. Politically speaking, I come from Germany, and there's a very large difference between the social democratic values in Germany and the more liberal approach in France. So I think that we have to take this up. And in terms of the new legislative period as well, we must work on all of this. Now, in the current legislative period, we've also seen that the social market economy has a lot to do with health. The COVID pandemic, it became clear that there's added value to taking a European approach, that every European citizen must have access to the same degree of healthcare. There's no first-class and second-class citizens on the European continent. We also have to talk about labor markets in Europe. How can we better structure them for the economy? There is free movement, but in terms of labor, we don't have this single market, and therefore we have to take up these issues and find solutions for them. The EPP, furthermore, also is very careful to think about subsidiarity. Of course, social issues are in the hands of the member states, but there's a European added value. We must take action together when we have common standards, when we work together. That's how we can go further, faster. So we have to set up the legislative framework that actually mirror the social market mindset. Personally speaking, today is a very important event for me because we as the EPP want to make it very clear that we are the party of the market economy, but we are the party above all else of the social market economy. We have the better ideas to actually reach the goals that we need as compared to other parties. When we're talking about competitiveness, if we're saying that this is something that we want to keep alive within this economy, well, I'm very happy to see everyone here who is with us to fight for these ideals. And this is a very important point for the EPP within the elections. And when we're talking about coalition agreements, and this is something that we will work on over the next 5 years as well. Europe can only exist if it's economically strong. It has a future only if it's socially just as well. Thank you very much, and welcome to everyone.
Thank you very much, Chairman Weber. Next, we will hear from Margarita Skinas, Vice President of the European Commission and Commissioner for Promoting a European Way of Life.
Thank you, Jack, Party Chairman. Dear friends, thank you for your massive presence. Let us not spend too many words on the diagnostics. Manfred said it nicely. The social market economy is a core political objective, not only of the EPP family, to which I proudly belong, but also a core political objective of the European Union. And if you zoom out and one tries to see the sequence of the instruments and the processes that we have been adopting throughout the years to make this social market economy work, you will see that from the single market to the Lisbon agenda, now the RRF and Next Generation EU, there was a consistent drive of the EU to keep the social market economy as an option which goes beyond declarational politics, but also in transforming it into tangible reality. So, as the European Union competitiveness in this current very fragile geopolitical environment is certainly under strain, the call to keep this principle alive, defend and promote this strong legacy is more timely and more relevant than ever before. So to kickstart the discussion, and in this very important panel around me, let me mention two areas where I think personally that we need to concentrate in the next 5 years, in the next political cycle. First, we need to boost our economic performance so that we can create good quality, well-paying jobs. Which way one looks at it, this will not going to be easy, because there is a global race for competitiveness, for raw materials, for clean tech, for talent, for energy. So the parameters of this competitiveness boost for Europe is not going to be so straightforward. So that's why President von der Leyen and the European Council asked one of the best Europeans around, Mario Draghi, to prepare a report on Europe's competitiveness and how it should be supported in the near future. We had a long seminar, the College of Commissioners, with Mario Draghi a few weeks ago, and I don't want to prejudge his findings, but I think that there are 3 clusters of priorities that are shaping up in his report. The first is that we will need a real reduction in the regulatory burden for businesses and companies. This builds on the famous one-in, one-out commitment that first Jean-Claude Juncker made in the previous commissioner, with an emphasis on small and medium enterprises, which are the backbone of the economy. The second priority around the Draghi work, I think, is an ambitious push for a deeper, broader, and more obstacles-free single market. Single market is the jewel in our crown, our greatest economic asset. And especially as we are succeeding our digital, energy, and defense transitions, I think the single market should capture this dynamism of these transitions and create it into more levers for prosperity. And the third priority, I would say, is forward-looking, mutually reinforcing industrial, trade, and competition policies. I see many old hands of the Brussels system. It's not a secret that throughout the years, our work in these areas has often been deep and narrow. We worked around these areas. I don't want to say the silo word, I just said it, but we worked in a way that did not allow us to fertilize between what we do on trade, on industry, competition policy, and the time has now come to establish the necessary links. I think this is what will create big, innovative European champions at global level that can have a central role to areas like net zero technologies, clean tech, AI, and the like. The second priority for the years to come is that nothing will work unless we get the people on board. Social market economy is mainly about the people. It has to work for the people. And a few weeks ago, I, together with Ursula and Nico Schmidt, attended the Val d'Uchaise summit. I'm very happy to see many of the social partners here present too. And let's face it, a renewed social dialogue, which is honest, which is clear-eyed, fact-based, and socially responsible, would have to be part of the mix for a social market economy. And I was very heartened to see at the Val d'Uchaise, also in the spirit of Jacques Delors, who, as you know, initiated this process, I was very happy to see at Val d'Uchaise a very strong, collegial, common consensus on several of the points that will shape this people-centric dimension of the social market economy. Let me mention a few and finish with that. First, skills. If we want to have the right competitiveness mix, we must invest in our people. People and skills, they are not a nice to have, but a must-have dimension of social market policy. We have unprecedented resources at EU level, both from Next Generation EU and from the normal budget, for upskilling and reskilling, 65 billion euros in total. It's a historic opportunity to make the best of it. Another element of the people's dimension of social market economy, a difficult one politically, but necessary, it's a system for organized labor mobility into the European Union. Upskilling, reskilling, exhausting the domestic potential of our job market is important, but it will not be enough. This is a fact. So when we speak about skills, labor shortages, we need to bring people in. People that we need in key areas of our economies, people that will come in an orderly, authorized way, people that will come, work in the European Union and live in the European Union according to our model of society, the principles and the values that underpin the European way of life. Otherwise, this is not going to work. And finally, also a Val d'Uchaise message, we need high level of labor protection standards. The social market economy was never in the past and will never in the future be done at the expense of the labor force. We will not have to lower our standards to make it work. It is true that if one looks around, there is still too much variation in the level of labor protection across our member states. While in this part reflects our national preference, we need to ensure that workers are adequately protected at a high comparable level across the European Union. This is also part of the European way of life. So there you are, dear friends, ladies and gentlemen. This is what I personally think is what it takes to revitalize the social market economy that served Europe well, but also needs to continue to serve us for the years to come. Thank you very much for having me, and I apologize because I would have to slide out discreetly and cannot take part in your discussion, but I very much hope and will be informed of this debate. Thank you again for having me.
Thank you very much to Vice President Skinas. As he mentioned, he will be leaving the stage very shortly. And throughout our event, some people will come up and down from the stage. That's quite normal here in the European Parliament. Coordinating calendars and diaries is something is sort of an art to make sure we can get everybody here this afternoon. So thank you very much for being here and for making time for us as well. On that note, I tried to get to the Vice President as soon as possible. And now I'll give you a bit of a rundown further of how our event is going to work, because we're going to start with a look at the cost of living crisis, and we have a set of panelists as well who are going to discuss this with us. And then we will turn our attention with new panelists in about an hour to the world of work, the modern world of work as well. The point in this event is to try and get questions coming from our audience. Welcome to everybody who is here. It's wonderful to see so many people here. So please start thinking of your questions as you are hearing all of our panelists, all of our MEPs speak. There is lots of time for questions, and that's the plan for this event. But I'm now going to hand over to Dennis Radke, who is an MEP and the coordinator of the the Social Affairs Committee of the European Parliament. Thank you, Dennis.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm going to speak in German, so.
If I make a note on that, Dennis, before you start, actually,
no, it's good to see people moving here.
I think. Sorry?
It's good to see people in action here.
Yes,
so,
there are some sound issues, I think, in the room, and maybe the microphones aren't quite so loud. So if you can't hear, you can also put the headphones in, and that will play the sort of floor sound as well. Please, Dennis.
Yeah, also vielen Dank.
Thank you very much, Manfred. Ladies and gentlemen, friends. There are many points that I would like to raise, but given today's event and given the challenges above all facing us in the next parliamentary term, there are three short points I'll confine myself to. Firstly, sometimes it's worth casting a glance at Eurobarometer. Sometimes it gives you a pretty clear picture. In the evaluation in Eurobarometer of the past year, you can see how deep the social crisis of the last years has grown deep with coronavirus and with the energy crisis, how much that's impacted on the middle classes. 91% feel social decline. 54% of people feel that they've lost standard of living badly because of inflation, or people feel that the inflation crisis has impacted on their ability to pay ongoing bills. With all that, you can see what's wrong in society in Europe at the moment. And I'll take it a step further. If you look at the Dutch election results, alongside the migration question, the cost of living crisis was the election deciding topic. And these figures, this fact, is one that we can't get around. We as the EPP must get to grips with this question. Our claim as Christian Democrats must be that people who are striving, who are working hard, that people who are investing a great deal in themselves and their families' livelihood have the opportunity to progress through working rather than running out of money a few days before the end of the month every month. I think that must be a common theme in our political work in the member states and at the European level. A second point was raised by Manfred, changes in the world of work. The fact that the world of work is becoming increasingly digital. There are questions about artificial intelligence in years to come, changing the working lives of millions of Europeans appreciably. These aren't things we can just leave to the member states. This is a European phenomenon, and there must therefore be a European answer to it. For that reason, too, it would be fateful for us if we remain bogged down in our regulation of digital platforms, because issues like the management of algorithms, I think, could be the basis for a European response to necessary changes adding to labour law in this field. That's why we really need that platform regulation as soon as possible. Another point is one of deep concern to me. I come from a region, the Ruhr area of North Rhine-Westphalia, which continues to be characterised by its industrial heritage. And it's one of the flagships of European industry, that area. But if you look at what's going on in industry at the moment, really, it gives you the heebie-jeebies, because looking at what we are doing in terms of the European Green Deal will hugely influence on what sort of industrial jobs will exist in the future too. I know what's going on in businesses. I've been exchanging with many works councils, and they are simply scared. If you look at the bare figures, the car parts industry, that's 18,000 jobs lost at one company, Continental losing over 7,000 jobs, Miele over 2,000 jobs. That's just what's going on in our industry in a number of areas. And of course, industry workers aren't just expecting passionate speeches from us about meeting the 1.5 degree goal. No, they're expecting passion as well when it goes into how to securing jobs. And that's why that's something that's got to guide us not just in this event, but our political work over the next 5 years. We as the EPP have to be able to say, how are we going to pull this off? How are we going to draw the threads? We have to demonstrate that growth and wages are going up and red tape and pollution is going down. And if we can't do that, others won't follow us with our more ambitious goals. And if people in our own population won't go along with us, they'll end up turning to the populists, and that's what we've got to avoid. And I'm thoroughly persuaded, I still am, that we have the keys in our hands to that solution in the EPP.
Thank you so much, Dennis, for those opening comments. We're now going to have a video message from European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen.
Dear Manfred Weber, dear Dennis Radke, dear friends, ladies and gentlemen. What is it that makes Europe unique? It is not only our culture, our history and geography. It is also our social market economy. In other parts of the world, the economy is either under strict state control or driven exclusively by the logic of profit. Europe is different. Our social market economy encourages people to excel and to innovate, while providing them with a safety net against the great risks of life. Private initiative is supported and enabled by public goods, such as education and healthcare, but also infrastructure and good governance. The social market economy is a promise of opportunity and protection for all. It is a promise that our parents built for us, and that must also be true for our children. Yet we know that the global economy is transforming because of climate change, artificial intelligence, and growing competition, but also because of aging societies. Young generations too often see their parents' quality of life not as a starting point, but as a goal they may never achieve. This is one of the great tasks we have faced in these years, to restore the promise of our social market economy. And this means first and foremost to keep our economy growing. The best social policy is a good growth policy. And this is why we have invested like never before in clean tech, digital infrastructure, and access to energy and raw materials. All the essential assets of the economy of tomorrow. But the most important asset of all is our people. Our competitiveness is built on the skills of our workers, on working conditions that allow them to thrive and to focus on their job. This has also been at the core of our action. With 65 billion in investment in skills from the EU budget and Next Generation EU, with the Pact for Skills to give workers the training they need, with minimum wages, with social rights for platform workers, with the first ever European strategy on mental health. Europe's growth is from the people and for the people. In our social market economy, opportunity and protection are two sides of the same coin. We all remember the early months of the pandemic, when protecting people and jobs was not only a moral imperative, it was also the best way to ensure a fast economic recovery. But we all knew that not all member states had the fiscal capacity to intervene, and this is why Europe stepped in. We procured vaccines for Europeans in all member states, large and small. We created the first European initiative for short-time work. We called it SURE, so that companies across our continent could keep their workers in employment during the lockdowns, and that secured skills and knowledge in the companies. And with Next Generation EU, we kick-started the recovery in all corners of Europe. It was unprecedented, and yet fully in line with the European social market economy and spirit. Because all Europeans should enjoy the same opportunities and the same protection. But our job is far from done. Think about women still facing countless obstacles, in particular at work. And this is not only unjust, it is also a huge waste of talent. In these 4 years, we have taken unprecedented action to tear down these barriers. We have introduced a child guarantee so that all families can afford childcare, because mothers and fathers should be able to both work and have a family. We have cast into law the basic principle that equal work deserves equal pay, because there is no single argument why a woman should be paid less than a man. We have unblocked after 10 years the Women on Boards Directive, because there are so many qualified women who can reach the top. And we've just agreed on new legislation on violence against women, because there can be no equality without freedom from violence. These are old European prides. We have made it happen, because the promise of the social market economy must be true for all, men and women alike. Tearing barriers down is not only about women. For some people, life is a constant struggle against discrimination and prejudice. We have all heard the stories of talented and qualified people who cannot get a good job because of how they look or because of their surname. I want Europe to be better. And that is why we put forward new initiatives against racism and anti-Semitism, but also for LGBTIQ people. It is a message to all Europeans. This is your home, this is your union, and you deserve to thrive. Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, business can happen anywhere in the world. Profits can be made on all continents. But where do people want to settle and raise their children? Where there's opportunity for all, where there's education and culture, where the streets are safe, where everyone is equal before the law, where people can move, study and work across borders that do not exist any longer, where you can build a future and pass it on to your children. This is Europe. This is what we stand for. These are our age-old values and our vision for the future. So let me wish you all a very good conference, and long live Europe.
Thank you very much to President von der Leyen for recording that video
Hello,
for
everyone.
us.
Leo Vrad.
Oh, next video nearly played. Excuse us. Next, we're going to move on to Cindy Franson, who is an MEP and a member of the Committee on Employment and Social Affairs. Please, for some opening comments.
Thank you for giving me the floor, and also thank you, Chairman Manfred Weber, to organize this event. This is a clear signal that a strong social Europe is a key EPP priority for the next mandate. And as the Commissioner already mentioned, a few weeks ago, the Belgian presidency, the European Commission and the social partners signed the Val-Duchesse Social Dialogue Declaration. And for me, a social market economy and a strong social dialogue are the heart of our European economy, and a strong social dialogue is key to decent working conditions and economic prosperity. And the world is changing rapidly. The only way forward is to join forces to address the key challenges of our times. And during the current mandate, important progress has been made on social issues. And thanks to our ample coordinator, Dennis Radke, we managed to agree on a directive on adequate minimum wages. And hopefully, let's not lose our hope, if the EPSCO may take its responsibility, a new directive on platform work as well. Moreover, we had the directive on pay transparency to bridge the gender pay gap and the social climate fund to make sure that no one is left behind in the climate transition. And I am also very proud that we managed to improve the health and safety of millions of workers with the revision of several directives. Dear colleagues, yes, we should be proud of these achievements, but let me be very clear, it's just the beginning. We are not there yet. The EU is home to 95 million people, I repeat, 95 million people who live in poverty. And the European Commission has pledged to reduce the number of people living in poverty by 15 million by 2030. But due to the global pandemic, the war in Ukraine, inflation and rising energy prices, the trend has actually gone the other way, with the past 3 years seeing the number of people in poverty rising by 3 million. And over the last 30 years, soft law measures have failed to eradicate poverty and social inequalities in Europe. As a co-chair of the Intergroup on fighting against poverty, I have worked a lot on the issue, and I can assure that we need a more ambitious approach to reduce poverty in the EU. In a context of rising inflation and soaring housing and energy pricing, it is crucial to have a strong social response also on an adequate minimum income and an ambitious child guarantee. As real Christian Democrats, we should not forget our roots. After 30 years of a successful European single market, we need a 2.0 version that is also social and sustainable. It is clear that a strong social component must be linked to the internal market in order to increase support for the European idea. However, the implementation of the European pillar is far from complete. A follow-up on the 21 Porto Social Summit, where major shortcomings were identified, is essential and should ensure that we continue to make progress on the European social pillars and its 20 principles. A recent survey by Eurostat shows that more than 9 out of 10 Europeans want a stronger social Europe. It is time to deliver and to commit to social progress for all Europeans. Fighting social inequality is the core of our Christian democracy. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Cindy, for those opening comments. Now we're going to move on to our panel, speakers that are coming from outside of the European Parliament or outside of the European Commission. We have Peter Wouters, who is the president of the Flemish Christian Labour Movement. We also have Arjen Siegman, who is a professor of valuable work in Christian social thought at the Vrije Universiteit Amsterdam, also a staff member for economic affairs at the CDA Research Institute, and an executive board member at the Wilfrid Martins Centre for European Studies. And we have Marina Stefou, who is the Secretary General for Demography and Housing in Greece in the Ministry for Social Cohesion and Family. And we have Oliver Rupke, who is the President of the European Economic and Social Committee. So it's wonderful that all four of you are here. Thank you so much for being here with us. Peter, we're going to start with you for some comments on sort of where we are with the social market economy from your side.
Yes, thank you, Jack. I will first introduce my organization for those who do not know who I am. I am the president of the Beweging.net, and it is a network organization in Belgium. We were founded more than 100 years ago, and together we bring actors in society together to make them strong. In our group there is a union, a health organization, several service organizations, and about 8 socio-cultural organizations. And to give you an idea, in Flanders we have about 4,000 local groups in our municipalities, and together with their presidents they unite and to make changes possible in their own municipalities, but build also a bigger project. Because at the heart of our work is the profound belief, and it is supported, yes, by the work of even Pope Leo XIII in 1891, who said that workers all over the world should organize themselves in order to stand up for their rights, to build up a society where every person is at the same value, and the profits of the market economy are to be redistributed to the people so no one is left behind. It sounds very familiar to you. It was a hard and difficult work for the last 100 years, and we can be proud of the results and the social model we are protecting at this moment. Over time, we ourselves came to call the model the Rijnland model. So the social market economy, as you want. And when we rediscussed our mission in our group a few years ago, we agreed that the principles of this Rijnland model are still relevant today, although in a different way. We still believe that the market is the best mechanism to create wealth, but not without smart redistribution of that wealth to people who are less fortunate, people in trouble or people at risk. We still believe that tripartite coordination between the unions, employers and the state government is necessary, but not without the new answers we need for the disrupting power of the big commercial players that hide themselves from the agreements of this deliberation. We still believe that citizens should organize themselves and take the freedom and the responsibilities that comes along with it, but not without the restraints of the element that is highly at stake at this moment, that is the impact of the climate crisis. And when I was at the Congress of our union, the ACV, a few years ago, the presidency stated that climate change was the most important and most threatening event of our time. The impact is already and will be more and more visible in every aspect of our life. So I am glad that the EPP focuses today on the cost of living and the challenges of modern work. What happens in this climate crisis is that it affects the basic costs of living: energy, housing, mobility. For every person or family with a modest income level, this is an exceptional challenge. So it is even harder challenge for disabled or unemployed people with a distance to the labor market. And everybody is now looking at this new social climate fund. We in Belgium are glad with the overall orientation of this fund. But at this moment, and being a civil society organization which is pointed out to be a partner in constructing this fund at the national level, we did not see or hear anything yet. That is the first message that we spread to our political parties as we are approaching the elections in Belgium. Let's get together and make a blueprint for this fund. It is crucial that housing, and in that way also the cost of heating, is at the core of this fund. We call for action and already proposed to create a global renovation fund that helps corporations for social housing, or that helps municipalities to scale up their efforts and to provide appropriate funding for the almost 50% of our houses that are not adapted for the near future. The second investment we propose to do is the further development of public transport, which is in a bad shape in Belgium. Plans are being made, and with civil society organizations at the table, we will surely find the way to improve it. Of course, and this is the third point I wish to make, in Belgium there is a general housing crisis at this moment. We strongly support the work of Housing First, as we believe that without a home, your life cannot get on track. Due to the wars in Ukraine, but also in Congo, Palestine, Afghanistan, Eritrea, and so on, we already have a high rate of demands for asylum. Adding to this, more and more people from Africa and Asia are on the run for climate change, as they can no longer live their normal lives. This will definitely become a worldwide challenge, and in the meantime, we strongly demand more and more appropriate houses, especially for small families. Our demands for the next Belgian government is to build more than 100,000 new homes and change the regulations in a way that multiple families can live in the same house. Our organization has prepared more and more concrete suggestions on this matter that we will provide to the EPP. I am looking forward to the results of this conference and once again wish to congratulate the EPP with bringing this topic to the stage. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Peter.
Yes. Thank you very much. Thank you, Manfred Weber, for the invitation. I was a bit embarrassed by the long list of jobs I apparently have. I guess the real reason is that I'm Dutch. This is the discussion part, and whenever a Dutch person opens their mouth in an international setting, a discussion follows. I wanted to talk about one thing, and that is the social dialogue. I think in the Christian social tradition, Christian democratic tradition, this social dialogue is something we really believe in. And it's interesting, also from an academic point of view, because many people do not believe in it. I've met them. Most of them are economists. They would say, well, they're just dividing the spoils if they do this. Or the entrepreneurs will win. Or it will lead to a higher cost of labor. It's just splitting the profits one way or another. I think what they miss is that people are loss averse. Let me explain that. It's also called status quo bias, and US politicians are very much aware of this. It's the mechanism where, I don't know if you have machines here in the parliament where you can buy snacks or coffee, you have to put in €1, or is it all digital? Okay, well, these machines, you had to throw in €1, and what if nothing comes out? Then you're pretty angry, isn't it? Your little bag of crisps is hanging there in the air, but it's just €1. What if you want to find €1 in the street? The emotion is not opposite of your anger. So we are much more sensitive to losing this €1 than gaining one. I think this is as the basis of why social dialogue is necessary, because in politics, everything has losers and winners. That's why I think US politicians understand this. You know that if you are for some form of policy, you know there's a group who will not like it, because they feel they lose something. But I believe that the value is in that if we understand each other's position, what's at stake, then if we are humans, dialogue is possible. People with different interests can talk to each other and understand each other. They can feel, oh, so that is what you're afraid of, or this is what you stand to lose if this goes on. Well, maybe there is a lot of room outside just simply dividing the profits. We're even kind of in the middle. And not just the middle in dividing up something, but the middle in creating something new. I think the status quo bias is also one of the drivers of the Dutch election results, as one of the previous speakers mentioned. I'm not sure who it was. In my view, people were a bit fed up with the status quo in the Netherlands. The government with the same prime minister for a long time. Even he himself admitted, I've been there too long. And people feel that. They say, give us some action. Then maybe, even if it's a left-wing cabinet or a right-wing, but make some decisions. Because now we stand still. So if you throw up the leaves, reference points change, the feeling of loss changes, and you get the opportunity to do something new. So 3 questions I came up with for the EPP. One, think about the social dialogue. It is possible. Maybe we should spread the news even more, that we believe in it. We believe that bringing people together with different interests is something that leads to new creative solutions. Second, I think it can be done on all levels. It doesn't have to be politicians to do it. Farmers and environmentalists can sit together. It is not easy, but it's something that can happen in society itself. Thirdly, this might be a job for politicians to speak about this, be instrumental in organizing this, saying, yeah, we believe this is possible, and that the conflict itself is not the most important thing, but how we can solve it if we can see each other in the eye. Because we understand the situation and the challenges before us, as mentioned by the previous speakers. So a social dialogue we can believe in. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Arjen. Now we'll come to you, Marina, please. This time is for your opening comments.
Thank you very much. Honorable Coordinator, Mr. Dennis Radke, dear MEP, Mrs. Cindy Fransen, ladies and gentlemen, I'm very happy and moved today to be among so many distinguished guests at the EPP Group Conference on Social Policy, but mostly to be among my EPP family, my former colleagues of Ample team, Emilia, Natalia, Jean, and especially my coordinator, Dennis Radke, and his team, as well as Silke Dalton, our very active head of economy and environment EPP Parliamentary Working Group. Thank you very much for this invitation. With all of you, I had the great privilege and joy to have worked closely till the end of September 2023 before accepting this new capacity under which I'm joining this special conference. I'm truly moved to be back and be given the opportunity to intervene in this discussion about the cost of living crisis and the quality of jobs and housing solutions in a member state like Greece. This discussion has important weight also because we are ahead of the EU elections, where EU strategy and policy towards a future-oriented economy should be clearly supported. And we, as citizens of member states and the EU, we know that only EPP Group can ensure and guarantee an efficient social market economy. In a constant and evolving society where economic and social factors are two continuously evolving variables, we are called upon as a society, states of law and welfare states, to solve this equation of the modern cost of housing deficit, where current high prices and inflation have an important negative impact. With a view to reducing inequality, Greece adopts policies and measures to enhance the capacity of its social state to promote social inclusion despite dealing with serious challenges. The Ministry of Social Cohesion and Family Affairs of the Hellenic Republic, which I have the honor to represent today, is a newly established ministry created after the last national elections that took place in June 2023. In its first semester of functioning, we promote policies and we introduce legislation, and we have drawn up and implement for the first time in Greece a stable and holistic housing strategy aiming both at the fundamental issue of homelessness and the welfare and protection of the most vulnerable groups, leaving no one behind and supporting young people in acquiring a primary residence. We aspire that through legislating and implementing different programs with various criteria and targeted beneficiaries, we could offer a palette of different choices and combinations for young people, couples, families, large families with more than 3 children, students, people with disabilities, vulnerable groups out of the job market, homeless or the needs. Coverage, Kalypsi in Greek, is one of the programs concerning the utilization of private houses that have been formally allocated for housing for applicants for international protection in 44 municipalities in the Greek constituency. Currently, more than 316 beneficiaries, of which 127 children, have already found a home. Beneficiaries are holders of the guaranteed minimum income selected according to several criteria, with priority given to single-parent, 3-child and large-child families, people with disabilities and other vulnerable groups. The Housing and Work for the Homeless, Stégαση και Εργασία in Greek, another program that aims at the social integration of the homeless through subsidizing both housing and work opportunities. Beneficiaries are individual families who live in conditions of lack of housing, with the budget of the program increasing from 10 million to 15 million the next 2 years. Currently, more than 558 households have chosen this program, of which more than 74 beneficiaries have found a new job, and we expect that the beneficiary household to increase up to 700 at the end of this year. In the field of supporting young people and couples, we implement the program My Home, Spiti Mu, which concerns the granting of low interest or interest-free housing loans to young people and young couples between the age of 25 to 39. And so far, more than 3,400 loans have been disbursed, with the ultimate goal of covering all typical applications that meet the criteria, that are approximately 9,800, costing up to 1 billion euros. So we estimate that 18,000 people, young beneficiaries, will find an apartment at a very good price with a free or very low interest loan. In the meantime, and at the end of this week, we are about to launch the legislation together with a public call of the Renovate and Rent for Young People program, a new program which aims to increase the housing stock and simultaneously lower the prices of rent. The beneficiaries of Renovate Rent program are subsidized for repairing and renovating costs on their property, amounting up to 10,000 euros maximum, and the subsidy amounts to 40% of this sum. There are several criteria that I will not mention right now, but in order to continue with other programs that we are launching. This ministry and the new General Secretariat for Demography and Housing under it focuses on increasing housing supply by using unused housing stock while providing affordable housing for rent below current market pricing. And with this notion, we expect that another program complementary that will start at the end of 2024, namely Κοινωνική Αντιπαροχή, social living to rent to own, if I could make the translation properly, could become a new tool for the utilization of public real estate concerning the construction of houses at the expense of the contractor and the leasing of the property to beneficiaries with predetermined criteria. This is a very widespread measure in many European countries in the context of which the state gives its properties to private contractors for a certain period of time. They build, taking advantage of the part of the leases for whatever period has been agreed, and the rest, 30 to 60% of the apartments within the same building, so that there is no discrimination, it is used for social housing based on social criteria. The specific criteria for this program will be soon further elaborated, and the public call is expected by the third trimester of 2024. Yesterday I was in Thessaloniki and I had the pleasure to discuss a new European Bauhaus initiative with the Commission as well, and we truly consider that this new program will be under this principle. All these programs are complemented by a pilot project on RRF of approximately 2 million euros on renovating and then renting in low prices. For 100 apartments, 70 in Athens and 30 in Thessaloniki region, so the biggest cities in Greece. In addition, there are already actions to regulate the Airbnb market, especially for touristic parts in the metropolitan area of Athens, Piraeus and Thessaloniki.
Just in the interest of time,
yes,
Marina.
Golden
please.
Visa program. There are many programs we are introducing, and I'm really, excited about all of them. This is social market actually at the core and creating really a social welfare state. So the existence of the housing problem combined with the cost of living crisis creates a prolonged state of involuntary inactivity of citizens, since it could lead in paralyzing the economic activity, and therefore this situation leaves a negative imprint on the social economy. That is precisely where we intervene with the aforementioned measures and actions to revitalize both the affected citizens individually and the market, making them part of the economy. It has been set as a goal by the Minister of Social Cohesion and Family Affairs, and with the above policies, we not only establish a stable housing policy in the country, but we strengthen both the vulnerable and the young. But also, in the long term, we aim to solve the demographic problem by giving the choice to bring back Greeks under the age of 40 who left abroad in the decade of the crisis, to find proper work, live and create families back in Greece if they so wish. With the current package of measures of more than 2.3 billion euros and 1,037
I'm going to ask you to please try and wrap it up as soon as possible so that we can have some questions. Thank you, Marina.
We aim to support and socially activate all these categories. So I conclude, and I want to underscore the profound importance of our social housing policy within the framework of a vibrant social economy. I strongly believe that only EPP policies can guarantee the most positive outcome. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed. I am terribly sorry to come in and cut you off. Yes. It's just so we can get to our question and answers. I know our audience is going to have lots of questions for us. But next we're going to turn to Oliver Rupke. I know that since you took over the position, you've been very active in trying to assert these ideas that we're talking about into EU policy making.
Yes, thank you very much, Jack. Dear ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, first of all, thank you very much for the invitation, and a special thanks really to Cindy and to Dennis for inviting me on behalf of the Economic and Social Committee. Also, on a personal note, I would like to thank you for the strong cooperation and for the support during this mandate. I think we need this strong voice for a social market economy that cares about competitiveness, about business, but also that cares about citizens and workers. We need even more of those politicians in all center parties. And I hope we will have a lot of allies also in the next mandate. But if I understood it correctly, this event should shape with the vision for the next mandate, how such a social market economy should look like. So please allow me just one sentence about the past, because I think if we look back to the current mandate, I think overall we can be also proud as Europeans that we tackled the crisis, the multiple crises we all know, the war against Ukraine, the pandemic, the energy crisis. I think we managed these crises better than previous crises, when I look to the financial market crisis, for example, because we found European solutions that were sustainable, solutions that had a European approach and were not only focused on cuts or on austerity. And I think this should be the lesson for the future. I say this because I'm a bit concerned if I see now the developments. We have achieved a lot of things, I think, in the last mandate, to move forward also with the social agenda, to move forward with the concept of sustainable competitiveness. Now, when I see yesterday, for example, the latest wage analysis from the European Central Bank, if you look to the data from 2022, 2023, then we can see that actually the growth in wages was just half of the increase in the cost of living in 2022. So last year, the unions managed to have a higher wage increase, and I read now that the central bank says, well, wages are the single instrument to I say it a bit, I simplify it, but to fight inflation. And I think this is dangerous. We cannot use wage moderation to fight inflation. I think we need really much more sophisticated instruments. And I just say this because I think we should really avoid to make the mistakes from the past and to enter again in an era of austerity. I think we should follow instruments like Next Generation EU or the SURE program, and also the full implementation of the pillar of social rights. I think this would be the way forward. We are facing the European elections, and this was said also by previous speakers. The main concerns of people is the cost of living crisis, fear of social exclusion, and I think this has to be tackled. And when we speak about wages, then I think we have the instrument on the table. This is the minimum wage directive. I like more the name collective bargaining directive because this is actually in the core. And I think we should work on this. And this is now actually a task for national governments, not only for Europe, to implement this and to strengthen again social partners, trade unions, employers' organizations, because they are in the end the best place to negotiate wages that follow inflation and wage productivity. This is my first point. And the second point I wanted to make, this was mentioned, I think we should not stop when we have reasonable projects to protect those who are the most vulnerable in the labour market, for example, platform workers, so the strong platform work directive, but also the due diligence directive, or more forward-looking, the European Works Councils. I think all those are projects that should be followed up quickly and also in the next mandate. Another point if we speak about social market economy, we speak also about the single market. And Mario Draghi was mentioned with his report about competitiveness. We look forward, of course, to the proposals. I think it's also interesting to see what Enrico Letta will propose for the future of the single market. And here we, as European Economic and Social Committee, contributed to this report with opinions from our side. We will see if this will be taken into consideration, but there's one point that Enrico Letta made at several occasions. He said one of the biggest achievements of the single market is the freedom of movement for business, for goods, but also for workers, for citizens. And he pointed out we should also see that there is a freedom to stay for those who do not want to move. And I think this is a clear commitment that we cannot stop to achieve more economic and social convergence within the European Union. And this is the point why we have also to make the necessary investments, forward-looking investments. I know time is running, but let me make one last point, because we just started last week to involve all candidate countries, representatives from trade unions, from employers' organizations, civil society organizations in the European Economic and Social Committee. And I think we should already now prepare the way for future enlargements. It is on the table. We are talking about Ukraine, Moldova, Georgia, but the Western Balkan countries are waiting for a very long time. And I think we have to start now. We know that it's a major challenge to strengthen now already the structures, rule of law, social dialogue, civil dialogue in these countries, but also to make the necessary investments to prepare them, because otherwise, if we start too late, then I think this promise of social upward convergence will be an empty promise, and we should absolutely avoid this. I have a lot of other points, but I stop here. Once again, thank you very much. I look forward to the debate. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Oliver, and to all of our panelists. Now, we are low on time, but this is an opportunity for questions from you guys here in the audience. The way this will work is I will take a few hands up. Can people start putting their hands up to see if they would like to ask a question? I can't see any. Surely in an election year on this issue, there's going to be some more questions. I don't know how to G people up. We can also take questions from our MEPs as well if they want to contribute. If not, I will continue to ask the questions. Yes. I think probably maybe 195. So the way this works, we will, I'll say your number, stand up, press the button, tell us who you are and where you're from, direct your questions to the panelists, and I will also perhaps allow some of the other panelists to come in. But sir, please, the floor is yours. I think it's, 195, I think.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm from the University of Bochum here for an exposition, and I want to ask Mr. Wöpke if you want to invest more after this crisis. Do you still want to save this economical and financial law, which is very strictly for investments for the member states, or do you think that you can work with the rules we have now?
What was your name, sir? What was your name?
Mr. Dieköfer.
Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you very much. I think it's a crucial point, because investments are key. Investments in future to manage a crucial point, because investments are key. Investments in future to manage the Green Deal. We can see it now, what happens if we don't have the necessary investments to make, for example, the green transition, also a just transition. We have now the proposal for the new economic governance rules. I think it goes in the right direction, but I think it doesn't reflect completely what we in the Economic and Social Committee have asked for. So we will see what will be the final deal in the end, but there must be space for investments for member states. We have also some member states who actually would be able to make these investments, but they don't do it because they have some debt breaks in place, which maybe are not the most flexible ones. But if I speak about investments, I think we should also should make stronger use of the European Investment Bank. I just saw 2 weeks ago that this bank becomes more and more the European Climate Bank. But I think it would be a good idea if they would become also the European Affordable Housing Bank, for example, to have more investments in affordable housing. This was mentioned. It's a pressing issue, but I think all the challenges that are ahead of us, and I just mentioned enlargement, I think it's an illusion if we think that we can do it without stronger investments with the means that we have only at the moment. I think we need more flexible routes.
Thank you, Oliver, and thank you for your question.
In Germany, we're here for 3 days. We've been invited here by Dr. Ehler, a member of the group. We were involved in discussions on the Net Zero Industry Act. For the lignite region, the law adopted requires that we exit lignite by 2030, and it will have a real impact on us. Now, this is a process that began 10 years ago, and it has now been implemented. 8,000 jobs were lost in the lignite industry, and they have now been replaced, and we're looking for new technologies. We'll continue to work on creating new jobs. So there is real will here, goodwill to renovate, dismantle outdated structures and replace them with new structures. And so I would encourage you all to continue down this path in Europe. Thank you. New structures. And so I would encourage you all to continue down this path in Europe. Thank you.
Would any of you like to come in on that, the sort of speed and the differences? Perhaps Arjen? Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for the comment and the story. I think this is exactly what I meant by, and was mentioned before, as also the job of the European Commission after the Second World War. Maybe Manfred Weber mentioned this, when also a lot of industrial scale employment was changed into other things. And your example is that it can actually work. If people work together, then it's possible. And it's just not, it's also not about compensation. It's not like, oh, the jobs are going away, we will compensate people financially. I think this is not a future, this is not a perspective. And what you're saying is that if you work together, you can find perspective for jobs, which gets us out of the situation of loss aversion, or in German it's meer Verlustangst als Zukunftsliebe. And we have to watch out for that. Thank you.
Yeah, this is it, the fear and the speed. And sometimes as well, we're not necessarily aware in Brussels and EU spheres of things like what you're explaining there. That was very interesting. Thank you. I will start. There is 241. Please stand up and state your name.
Hi, my name is Olivia Chapong and I'm with Euractiv. I had 2 questions. The first one being, returning to the affordable housing issue, how are member states proposing to fund affordable housing projects, in addition to maybe making the European Investment Bank the Bank of Affordable Housing? What other funding mechanisms do you propose? Should I ask my second one now or later?
Hit it. Go for it.
Okay. And then with regards to women in the workforce, which was brought up earlier, what specific initiatives would you recommend to be worked on to promote women's advancement in tech skills in the tech field as well as heavy industry? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Would you like to come in on this, Oliver? I wonder if Dennis as well, who is in the audience, might want to come in on this.
Yes, thank you for the question, because housing is definitely an issue where we are working on for years now in the committee, and we have a lot of proposals how Europe could help member states, because this is primarily, of course, a national competence, but I think, nevertheless, that Europe could play a role here. We see 2 points. First of all, we think that we need a European action plan for affordable and sustainable housing with some principles. We might have to look also in competition rules when it comes to national systems of affordable housing. So European fund for investment in affordable, decent and suitable housing. So we think it's not enough to set up only rules. I think Europe should support this, and I think it will, in the end, it will pay back, and it is definitely an investment in the future. Thank you.
I saw Peter wanted to come in first. Peter, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for the question about affordable housing. In complex issues, I think some of the times it is interesting to make it more complex before answering it. And there is not just one affordable housing problem. There is a lot of kind of affordable housing problems. And I give you an example. In Belgium, we have an affordable housing problem for students going to the city where they study. There is a housing problem for people seeking for asylum. There is a housing problem for small houses, for couples who have been in divorce. So all these kind of housings, questions for housing is another kind of issue and has other stakeholders to get around the table to look for answers. And we see small projects with big effects on the problem at hand. So in some cities, social housing organizations are getting together with universities and they start building programs to make affordable student houses. So this is a way, I think, to not only work through a national bank or a bank policy, but also look at municipalities who can make choices at their own level and find solutions for the people in their own municipality.
Marina, I'll come into you yet. Not to be the woman answering the question about women in the workplace, but you are from the ministry in Greece, and the question was about how member states are improving on that, please.
Yes, I wanted also to comment on housing because I presented some tangible projects that we have in Greece. Of course, these are complementary one to another, but as our distinguished guest said today, this is a matter of collaboration. It's public and private partnership as well, and of course a combination of financing, European and national as well. So women, we are taking many initiatives and legislation in Greece. Also for women in companies, as in the top seats in companies, and we try to give initiatives to young women to enter into the job market. Also, especially on technology, on STEM issues, we have a project on RRF for young kids, for adults, for adolescents, from 15 to 19 years old. So the young women will encounter and will learn how they can tackle, these issues on mathematics or engineering, normally faculties that women not usually attend. Apart from that, we have several other initiatives for young women at universities, young students, and more projects to prepare.
Thank you very much, Marina. Dennis, a comment from you.
Yeah.
On the housing question, let me say the following. We need to look at the Climate Social Fund in this connection. It is one of the reasons we touched upon the issue here. In the Environmental Committee and environmental committees, we had EPP rapporteurs here. David Casa was one. We know that there were a lot of pledges made, but not honoured. That happened in Germany, for example, but Europe has delivered on the Social Climate Fund. And this is important to provide an answer to affordable housing needs. I think that far too little is said about this in the general public. So a lot of support is available at EU level.
That's all we've got time for this first panel. I'd like to have a big round of applause for all of our panellists. And yet, a note for the questions as well, hands up early. There was a few that weren't answered, but you will be able to ask questions in our second panel. We'll take 5 minutes for a bit of a technical switchover. That's also to note for our people that are joining us online. Please stay in your seats, though. We won't be having any sort of break, just a technical switch as we move to our second panel. Thank you. He was too far away. I was like, I need to help him. Now it's fine. I'll stay in my place. Please, Esther.
After being the first, I'm now the slacker.
You were up out of your seat, exactly. Okay. Wonderful. The microphone's on? Yeah. Is it working? Okay, so okay, we're gonna start again. Please, if I can ask everyone to take their seats. We're gonna get going with our second panel. Yeah, please everyone take their seats. You don't know where I'm going to be today. I might be down here. I might be up on the stage, but I'm going to come back down for this second part. The mic's not. Can the team turn this on? Can the team turn this microphone on? No. Is it on? Yeah, there we go. Okay. You can't hear when you're talking whether a microphone is on. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to move on with our second panel. And to start this, I will introduce our panelists in a moment. But to start this discussion on the modern world of work, we are firstly going to hear from Leo Varadkar, who is the Taoiseach, the Prime Minister of Ireland. He's delivered us a video message.
Hello everyone, Leo Varadkar here. I believe improved terms and conditions go hand in hand with employment growth. Here in Ireland, we've been making great strides in building a real social market economy in which work pays and enterprise is rewarded. We've introduced statutory sick pay for all workers for the first time, legislated for a right to seek remote and flexible working, increased the minimum wage ahead of inflation and median earnings, improved family leave, halved the cost of childcare, and reformed pensions, including a new system of auto-enrolment so every worker has access to an occupational pension on top of their state one. We also have a flexible pension age of 66 to 70, with higher pensions for those who contribute longer, and periods out of work while caring are counted. And we've introduced a 10th public holiday and protected workplace tips and gratuities. These reforms weren't easy, but they were worth doing. Wages have never been higher, and yet we've more people at work than ever before. The world is changing, and I believe that better pay, benefits and protection for workers will help us to recruit and retain the skilled staff we need for the 21st century. Enterprise and reward is a really important value for my party, Fine Gael. In Ireland, we believe the single market is one of Europe's best achievements. It's also an unfinished project with unfulfilled potential. We need a social Europe too. The EPP is best placed to ensure the EU does more over the next 5 years to promote growth, entrepreneurship and innovation among our SMEs, to unleash the potential of the single market. The EU is well known for its standard setting, its rules and regulations, but I also want us to be well known for being the best place in the world to start and grow a business. That's a tough ask, but one we're well placed to achieve as the world grapples with the complicated but transformative potential of developments like AI, robotics and renewable energy. That's why today is so important. The EPP's vision of a social market economy can make a huge difference in people's everyday lives and make a difference for generations to come. I look forward to catching up with you in person soon, and thank you for the invitation to speak to you today.
Thank you very much to the Taoiseach for delivering that video for us to start our second panel. As I said, it's going to be about the world of work. It's still not working? It's not working? Can you turn me on? No? Not in that way. Are we on? There we go. Okay, sorry guys. Okay, so as I said, this is about the modern world of work, and to that end, we have 5 esteemed panelists here with us. Esther Lynch, who's the General Secretary of the European Trade Union Confederation, ETUC. We also have Barbara Gerstenberger, who is the head of the Working Life Unit in Eurofound. We have Adriana Sukova, who is the Acting Director General in DG Employ of the European Commission. We have Father Manuel Barrios Prieto, who's the Secretary General of the Commission of the Bishops' Conferences of the European Union. It's wonderful that you're here with us. And Moritz Engels, who's the Deputy Chairman of the Works Council for ThyssenKrupp Steel Europe AG. Wonderful that you're all here. Thank you so much. We are also waiting for Commissioner Suica. When she arrives, we'll get her up on the stage as well to come and speak to us. But Esther, we'll start with you. The modern world of work, what does it look like?
So Thanks for the invite, and thanks in particular for Dennis. Now, I'm panicking because we have 12 commitments in our manifesto, and there's no way I'm going to get to talk about all of those commitments. So here's the plug. Please go online and look at our manifesto. The future of work needs to be quality jobs. We need to get back to creating quality jobs. We need to protect the quality jobs that we have, and we need a plan of investment for quality jobs. We need to make sure that there's respect for workers. We need to ensure respect for workers and the work that they do. I'm quite worried about what management schools are teaching at the moment, because I meet many workers and their trade unions who are faced with a tool of management, a single tool of management, which is fear. And the way in which fear works is workers are monitored within every second of their lives, and AI is a real danger in that regard. The way in which fear works is that workers know one mistake and you're out. The way in which fear works is that customers are asked, how was your experience? Was it smiley face or unhappy face? And you get too many of those unhappy faces and you're out. And we need to tackle this. We need to put rights back into the hands of workers. We need to make sure that they can join a trade union and bargain for a fair workplace. A workplace where there is a psychological contract, where workers are not going to work every day in fear, where there's a psychological contract of investment in workers, the real recognition that the success of the company and economy as society is about workers. We're the beating heart of the economy. We need to make sure that those companies that do this, because there are many, that they're not disadvantaged by those who don't. And that means making sure that there's an investment for the green transition. And those investments need to come not as a blank cheque, so that those who are trying to compete on lowest terms and conditions succeed, but no, instead, needs to be a carrot. It needs to reward companies who are investing in making sure that workers get the training, get the time off, have the childcare, have the flexibility, and have the wages that allow them to have a life of dignity, to put a roof over their head, to put food on the table, and to support their families to succeed. I also want to talk very quickly about the threats to health and safety, because we have a lot of very old-fashioned threats to health and safety. I know Tom DeLue is here. Tom is the General Secretary of the Building and Workers Federation, and he told me on the way in how he was going to meet with the workers' families of 5 workers who had been killed on a building site. And what he said is that it is workers, migrant workers in subcontracting chains. So we need to tackle that as well. We need to look at the places where exploitation is happening. We need to look at those risk factors, ensure inspections, and ensure that there is a level playing field, that companies that do not practice safe regimes do not get contracts, in particular, do not get public procurement contracts. And that's why I really want to thank Dennis, who's actually not here at the moment, but I wanted to thank Dennis for the support that he's giving us in the coming period to make sure that public procurement, public money, goes to the companies who are doing the right things and not to companies that are not doing that. And then finally, I want to make a call for a directive on psychosocial risks at work. All too often, we meet with workers who are experiencing what I would call ethical stress. Often, teachers, healthcare workers, know what's required to give the service to the students or to the patients, but they're not given either the time or the resources or the facilities to provide that service. And every day they go home stressed about that, stress that they can't give the service that they know is the deserving service that they want to provide. There's also a psychological stress related to the 24/7 approach where workers are told, of course, you have a right to disconnect, but believe you me, they turn off that phone. They're not going to get promoted because the company will say, we want people who are really committed. And I saw that you weren't answering your emails over the weekend. We need to stamp out that type of behaviour. That's why we need a directive to ensure the practice of the right to disconnect is as real as the idea and the existence of the right to disconnect. I see the commissioners coming now. So in a nutshell, an industrial policy for quality jobs, a directive on psychosocial risks to prevent the psychosocial risks in the workplace, a directive for anticipation and management of change to make sure that workers can, in their union, bargain for change, and then finally to make sure that collective bargaining is fully supported for a fair wage, for good conditions of employment, and for the type of future that I know we all want to create for a single market based on an idea of a hope, not only for ourselves but our grandchildren in the world of work as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Esther. Appreciate your opening comments. Wonderful. And as you've seen, and yeah, please. And as you've seen, Vice President Dubravka Suiza has managed to join us. Don't worry, we have had lots of ins and outs. We know that the scheduling is very difficult and we're very grateful that you've come to join us. As Vice President for the European Commission and Commissioner on Democracy and Demography, perhaps you can give us a quick, brief opening statement as well.
Thank you very much, dear ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon. Sorry for being a little bit late. First of all, I would like to thank EPP Group, especially Cindy and Dennis in particular, for inviting me to open this panel. And the topic is close to my heart. Because although my portfolio of democracy and demography is a broad one, it concerns the future shape of labour markets. So I'm referring mainly to the demographic transition. In every member state, birth rates are below the replacement level. I know that President von der Leyen referred to it in her introductory speech, while at the same time life is becoming longer. So birth rates are declining and the life is becoming longer. This is changing the population pyramid, meaning that there is not a peak with few older people and the base with many young people, but the pyramid is being inversed. This has major implications for our future working population and for the financing of our social welfare systems. According to current projections, between 2035 and 2040, so in just over 10 years, the share of the working age population will be less than half of the total population. In other words, the productive population will be smaller than the unproductive one. In this context, social policy is more important than ever. We should rather exploit the current trends to promote policies that help in reducing the need for social expenditure. I'm thinking, for instance, of health. When I was a child, people over 60 usually had physical or mental impairments and would self-define as old people. Today, this would be the description of people above or around 80. Because I can assure you that the people I know in their 60s are mostly productive or able to be productive. In fact, they want to be productive. Yes, they have their issues, but they are overall fine. Overall, they are fine. What has changed is, in fact, nutrition, lifestyles, scientific progress. It not only allows us to live longer, but also helps slow down our aging process. We need to aim at reducing the gap between the lifespan and so-called health span. It's not the same. So we have to reduce the gap We shouldn't do it to save on health costs, but to help people gain productive and enjoyable years. Then, if you also save on long-term care, even better. At the same time, healthier seniors should be happy to keep contributing to the society, be it through volunteering, paid work, new projects, and other. This would help them remain physically and mentally active, and it could also incidentally contribute to reducing the pressure on pension systems. You know that we launched the Demography Toolbox last October, and we introduced the concept of longevity into our policy approach. I don't know whether you are familiar with this, but we somehow based this Demography Toolbox on 4 pillars. Just to give you the idea, the first pillar is about parents and families, how to make the situation in our communities and societies that women or families or parents do not have to choose between work or children. So that means that we have to install infrastructure across Europe in each and every community, in each and every municipality across Europe. Then we have second pillar, which is about young people, youngsters, who may have diplomas, they have their diplomas, but unfortunately their diplomas don't match to the needs of the labor market, because education, unfortunately, is slower than development of technology, so they cannot cope with it. And the problem is that we have to upskill or reskill them in order to be ready to fill in the gaps of the labor market. Both categories, Pillar 1 and Pillar 2, families and youngsters, they have one common feature, which is housing. There is a big issue in Europe nowadays, housing for young people, housing for young persons, and this might be the reason for not deciding to have families and so on. But this is also a gender issue, because you might know the numbers, the figures, but just to somehow repeat this, 8 million European women are not in the labor market, although they have their CVs, because they have to take care either about their child or about their parent, because they don't have infrastructure, either it's not accessible or it's not affordable or whatever. So this is something where our cohesion policy comes in place. It's very important. Third pillar, the most important one, is older people. We don't call them anymore elderly, because it's more sophisticated to say older people. And older people, as I said at the beginning, 60 in my childhood, 80 now. So which means that older people may be capable of continuing their work. So I think, although it's not competence according to the Treaty of the European Union, but it's competence of member states. But member states, we can only recommend that to somehow introduce or install flexible working hours. For those who want to continue work, why don't them let work? Because we have this obligatory retirement age. For those who want to volunteer, let them volunteer. They have knowledge, they have expertise, they have wisdom in the end. Why don't let them transfer their knowledge, wisdom and expertise to younger generations? And this would be the moment of so-called intergenerational solidarity or intergenerational fairness, which all of us are speaking about. But in fact, this is the moment when they can transfer their knowledge. And I think it is very important to harness the potential of all these 3 pillars: families, youngsters, young people, and older people. And of course, there is a 4th pillar, and I know that we are approaching elections, but might not be popular to mention, but I have to mention it because it is our reality. There is a 4th pillar, which is legal migrants. When we harness all this human capital, it's not enough. We cannot fill in the market, and we need legal migrants, especially in care and some other sectors, just to make you aware of what is at stake. But of course, I know that in some member states it's very delicate, very, very sensitive, so let's stay as we stay here. But this is 4th pillar of our demography toolbox. So it doesn't mean that all 27 will use the same things, but we somehow put at their disposal the possibilities which exist, instruments which exist at European level and which could be used better. Sometimes they are not used because of lack of administrative capacity, lack of knowledge, lack of finances, because usually need this 15% for cohesion funding and so on and so on. I don't want to elaborate more, but just to let you know what we somehow offered to member states, but on request of 27 leaders, Commission adopted this demography toolbox. So concept of longevity is in our policy approach. We don't say anymore that we are aging continent. We know that we are aging, but we are a longevity continent. We live longer, it's more positive, and this is something which we have to praise and not to be afraid of. So its main idea is to turn around the narrative, as I said, not only narrative, but the reality, and look at the bright side of demographic trends which are evident. Notably, healthy longevity refers to the fact that people are not only living longer, but also healthier lives. This is what I said at the beginning. So we want to put the accent on prevention. In this sense, we are speaking about longevity literacy, which is the awareness of the fact that we are living longer and that we should therefore base our life choices on a longer life. Why I'm saying this? Because earlier we somehow we somehow used to divide our lifespan in three phases: education, working time, retirement. Now there is fourth phase, which we have to see what to do with the extra 10 or 20 years which are gifted to us. So let's see. This is new philosophy, so let's think about this. I'm just giving you food for thought. So exercising more is not only something we should do for our health, but also to prepare our body to sustain us for a longer time, much longer than at any other point in our history. I'll tell you something more. Never before so many generations have been living together, from grandparents to their granddaughters and grandsons, which means that due to this lifespan. So let's think about this. Preparing workplaces and jobs for longer and more flexible careers is something we need for our own competitiveness. The biggest brain drain we observe is the one of the people who retire too soon. So this is something which nobody somehow... they are creating brain drain by leaving labor market too early. But okay, we are not blaming anyone. We are just trying to think about this. These retirees are precious resources, as I said. They have knowledge, and they acquired all this through the decades of their work, life, education. So we cannot tolerate ageism any longer, and companies must be ready to have workers with a higher level of seniority, provided that they are able to harness it. And to conclude, I know that this panel is composed of people who look at these topics with a different lens. So I hope that these considerations can be useful to trigger an interesting conversation, discussion, or thinking. Our choice now is whether to adapt to this new reality and survive, or defend the status quo and be overwhelmed by the trends. So let's see how to adapt to this new reality. When I say we, it means, since you are members of parliament, but also others, how to adapt our legislation, not only to 65 plus 70, but to adapt legislation for longer lifespans. Thank you very much. It was all from my side for the beginning.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much to Vice President Suiza. Can you hear me? Is this? Yeah, okay. It's a strange microphone. Next up, we have Barbara Gerstenberger, who is the head of the Working Life Unit at Eurofound, which is the agency for the improvement of living and working conditions. Perhaps you can also explain, just to start your comments, how the agency works to do that, and then explain how we need to continue.
Yes, thank you very much, Jack, and thanks to Dennis Radke and the EPP Group for inviting Eurofound to be part of this panel. Our task is to provide evidence to inform policymaking in this area of social and work-related policies. And in my remarks, I will pick up where Esther left off and focus on working conditions and job quality. And my first remark is a reminder that this modern world of work is work in progress. So these mega drivers that we are talking about, digitalization, decarbonization, towards me, okay, sorry. Mega drivers of change, digitalization, decarbonization, demographic change, as we just heard, are not exactly disturbing a perfect equilibrium. Eurofound has been monitoring working conditions for over 3 decades now, and whereas our research shows that the vast majority of jobs in the EU are good quality jobs, there remains a substantial share of low quality jobs. For the last European Working Conditions Survey, which we conducted in 2021, we used a methodology that was developed together with the OECD to measure job quality. And this showed that 70% of jobs in Europe are of good quality because workers have access to a higher number of resources than they are exposed to demands at work. But for 30% of jobs, for 30% of workers, this was the other way around. Workers were exposed to demands like long or unsocial hours, physical risks, psychosocial risks, and again, Esther gave some examples here, high levels of work intensity, job insecurity, to give just a few examples. And these demands were not outweighed by an equivalent or higher number of resources that you also have in your job, if you think of your own job. Support from colleagues or from your boss. Autonomy, discretion to organize your work. Working time flexibility, training. These are resources at the disposal of workers. But if there is more demands, if there are more demands than resources, then you are in a strained job. And as I said, 30% of jobs in Europe in 2021 fell into this category of strained jobs. Now, this in itself is not a good thing and points to a need for action, but there is an additional concern here when it comes to shaping and being ready for the modern world of work. The European Working Conditions Survey also measures not just working conditions, but also work outcomes. And here we can see a clear and very strong association between poor working conditions and work outcomes. Those in strained jobs are much more likely to report health problems. Those in strained jobs are more likely to report low levels of mental well-being. Those in strained jobs are more likely to report low levels of engagement at work, poorer work-life balance, more difficulties making ends meet, and they are less likely to be willing or able to stay in the labour market until or even beyond retirement age. So this shows that our ability to adapt to the drivers of change, which depends on having a healthy, engaged, motivated workforce, is hampered by poor working conditions that about 1/3 of workers experience in the current world of work. So job quality is linked to our preparedness, to our readiness to adapt to change brought about by the mega drivers that I have listed. The mega drivers also impact on job quality directly. If you think about telework, if you think about platform work, I'm not going to go into this in order not to be too long. My main point is to highlight the important role that job quality plays in shaping the modern world of work and meeting its challenges. And the good thing is that we have a very good understanding of what job quality is, the different dimensions. We have a good and established way to measure it. We have a tool, the European Working Conditions Survey, to measure and trends in job quality in Europe, which means we can and should take job quality into account in the design of a very wide range of policies. Thank you.
Next, we're going to hear from Adriana Sukova from DG Employ of the European Commission. Please.
Good afternoon, colleagues, and I want also to thank Mr. Radke and Ms. Fransen for organizing this debate, because it's really important to now stop and take stock of what we are doing and what are expectations from our citizens. And without repeating all the challenges and the triple transition now, it's not only twin, digital and green, but also demographic transition, and all the issues that we have to face in solving the problems that our daily lives pose to us. The European Commission is working on a number of initiatives. Some of them have been much more successful than others, but still work is continuing. And the previous speakers referred a lot to the Platform Works Directive, which is in a not very finalized and final agreement situation, but we still hope. But let me just refer to the situation in European Union now, because 2 days ago we had the winter forecasts presented to us, the economic forecasts, which show that the European labour market is doing very well. We are still at a rate of unemployment a bit below 6%, which is record low, and labour shortages are gradually easing, but still we have a higher level of people a high level of demand of people. First, it's people in general, but also there is the question of skills and competencies of the people that can join the labour market, and this is at still a very high percentage of, historically high percentage. We have a labour market which we are projecting to be losing, and Commissioner Schwitzer was very right to say that we are losing very quickly a number of labour force, active people from the labour market, and our projections show that 1 million people at working age will be leaving the labour market in the next 15 years, and by 2050, which means quite a lot of 35 million people less on the labour market, and this is posing an additional challenge to the labour market, but also to the world of work, because we have the problem of attracting inactive people, skilling and upskilling them for the needs of the labour market, providing them with the demands on the labour market, but also will this be enough? Will all the possible digital solutions help enough to overcome the labour shortages? We are working, as everybody knows, a lot on the artificial intelligence. There have been references to, and Mrs. Lynch is really a big proponent for addressing the labour conditions and the labour relations in platforms and in working relations when it comes to artificial intelligence being applied for monitoring and controlling the work. But in terms of quality of jobs, working conditions, skills and inclusiveness, we're really focusing all our efforts. And I have to quote that first, we have 1 in 4 EU companies reporting that they use automated or semi-automated systems to monitor or manage workforce, which puts a challenge indeed to make sure that workers who are part of such a process are keeping their life balance, work and life balance possibilities intact. We are taking action to address some of the challenges, and as part of the implementation of the European Pillar of Social Rights that was referred to a few times already in the previous panel, and the action plan also referred to before with previous speakers, we also work on a human-centric approach with the human in control principle, and in 2022 the European Commission adopted a declaration on digital rights and principles to place people at the center of the transformation, including regarding the impact of artificial intelligence in the world of work. The technological progress should not lead to social regression, and we need to ensure a level playing field, and all rules which are applicable to the offline world should apply to the online world of work. We have the directive which I referred to on the improving working conditions for platform work, and we are proposing for the first time workers in the area of algorithmic management to have clear rules, and also we will be starting very soon in the coming weeks the first stage consultation of social partners on the right to disconnect directive, which is also quite broadly expected by everyone who works in a digital world and who wants to be sure that their right to telework and disconnect are really respected. We have to promote upskilling and reskilling, I already referred to, because 3 out of 4 companies declare that they have difficulties in finding the people with the right skills for their needs. And currently we are in the middle of, or a bit closer to the end of the European Year of Skills, which was launched in May last year. We have more than 2,000 events promoting upskilling and reskilling as a daily life, as a daily experience of everyone, because of the quick development of technology, but also the quick change in the expectations in relation to the transitions that we are living through. We have also more than 20 large-scale partnerships under the Pact for Skills across 14 industrial ecosystems, getting together employers, employees, local authorities to work together and make sure that these partnerships can provide and ensure people with the right skills for the needs of the local labor markets. I think Vice President Skinner already referred to the 65 billion euro that we have from the European Social Fund Plus and the Recovery and Resilience Facility to invest in skills with the objective to achieve the Porto target of having at least 60% of adults receiving a training at least once a year. And this comes to the point of Mr. Lynch about the right to training. We have, of course, the challenge of the work-life balance, and we have a number of initiatives which have been already taken up to make sure that we have a European Union of more family-friendly situation. We have adopted the Work-Life Balance Directive and European Care Strategy, and we support reforms and investments in member states with European funding. Intra-EU labour mobility is at the heart of the single market, and fair mobility is essential to manage the economic recovery and the transitions, so we will need clear and transparent rules, and we can count on digitalization to help remove further the barriers to mobility. This was also referred in the first speech. The social dimension of the single market should be one of the core points to be made by Professor Letter, who is preparing the report on the single market, on the future of the single market, but also the preparation of Professor Draghi's report on the future of the European Union competitiveness, because the social dimension is a cornerstone of stability and resilience of our economies. I'll finish just by referring shortly to the social partners agreements and the revitalization of our discussions with social partners, and also the action plan which we're working on now after the Val d'Uchaise meeting summit on the 31st of January this year, to address labor and skill shortages, but also to prepare a pact for social partners and their involvement and engagement in the next years to come. I want to come back briefly on the Social Climate Fund because it was referred to in relation to housing. And the Social Climate Fund is, of course, one instrument which can help insulation of buildings and also housing. It can also help reduce expenses in relation to heating or cooling, but it is not an only solution, and it cannot be the only solution. I believe that the European budget cannot be expected to be the only solution for solving the housing issues, because this is quite broad. Even the European Investment Bank alone cannot do that. It requires a lot of engagement, it requires a lot of commitments, but also it requires a lot of rethinking which are the incentives that could be provided to get to the interest of investors in social housing in the future. I know you're pressing me, looking at me, so I'm stopping here. Thank you.
It's only in the interest of time. Thank you so much. We're going to come down to Father Manuel for your opening remarks. And thank you to Vice President Suiza, who's leaving the stage. Please, Father Manuel.
So my intervention will be quite brief, so very brief, because I'm going to speak more of general principles in one sense. I thank very much the persons that have invited me to this meeting, the EPP Group. for inviting COMESE. I'm Secretary General of COMESE. That means that I'm the Secretary General of this organization of the Catholic Church here in Brussels that was created 40 years ago, a bit more than 40 years ago, in 1980, as an entity of the Catholic Church, an official presence of the Catholic Church, to dialogue with the European institutions. So we represent officially the Church in the member states of the European Union before the European institutions. And I'm the Secretary General of this organization that has a staff here in Brussels, and we follow the different policy areas of the European Union that are of interest to us, and we contribute. We try to maintain dialogue. So, just a few things on my side. The first thing is to congratulate for the title of this event. I think it's very well chosen. A social market economy that cares. So this word is very dear to the Christian tradition, also to Pope Francis. Caring, being concerned, caring. The Latin is custos, custodia, custodire. Besorgen in German, a word much used by Heidegger, because it's a way of being in the world, and also a way of being in the world authentically. So I think it's a very nice word. We have to take care. It was said, take care of businesses, take care of competitiveness, but I would say also take care of persons, and I think this is the most important thing. So one of the pillars of the teaching of the Church, of the social teaching of the Church, and I think one of the pillars also of the Christian democratic tradition, and has to be so, is the dignity of every human person. So I think this is an important principle to keep in mind. And I think the title of this event also makes reference to this. So what are the principles of the Catholic social teaching that can be applied in this area which we're discussing this afternoon of the work today, the modern world of work? So these are principles that I think we have to keep in mind and then apply them to the situation in which we are. Namely, fair wages, protection of the workers, adequate time of rest. And here COMESE has been very active through what was created as Sunday Alliance to advocate for a synchronized day of rest in the European Union, a synchronized weekly day of rest in the European Union. Stable, secure jobs, security at work, possibility of being members, as we already heard, of trade unions. So these are basic principles that have to be applied so that we can have jobs that do dignity to the human person, that allow the person to fulfill his vocation, her vocation, to have basic conditions for a dignified life, to have a family, to enjoy leisure time. And I think this is not to be given for granted, that this is so. So we're living at times that are challenging, times that are uncertain. We have realities that surround us. Globalization is an important phenomenon that affects the work, technological advancements. We have spoke about AI, platform workers, online work, new forms of employment that we have today. And as COMESE, we have expressed our concerns on some issues that are taking place in our days. For example, we had an event last week here in the Parliament about human trafficking and slavery, and this is something that is present also in the European Union. Platform workers. We regret that member states last Friday did not reach an agreement on this directive. Family-life balance. Cost of housing, that was discussed in the panel before. vulnerable and dependent persons in the families, parental leave, mental health and loneliness, and the questions posed by AI. We think that there has to be a limit to the humanization of machines. And then the use of personal data, also in selection processes. So this is what we have in front of us. And what is our proposal? It's very general. Then I think it's to policymakers to make the effort to translate all this in policies, in concrete policies. But I think what we have to do is apply these principles that are principles that we share in the Christian democratic tradition to the realities we're facing. And we have to do this, and here I conclude, we have to do this, and it was said before, in a European way. In a European way. So, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Father Manuel. Appreciate it. We're going to come now to Moritz Engels. Thank you for your patience here on the end. Deputy Chairman of the Works Council for the Dortmund site of ThyssenKrupp Steel Europe. From the side of the workers, very much, perhaps you can outline your opening statement.
Yeah, thank you. I will speak in German, so put your headphones on and I will start. Ja, vielen Dank.
Thank you very much to the EPP Group. Thank you to Dennis Radke, who we already had a discussion with yesterday. We were here as the entire Works Council of the ThyssenKrupp AG, which is one of the biggest steel producers in Europe. Now, at the moment, a lot of things are changing. One of the major topics is transformation, the transition. On one hand, we had the environmental, the green transition, but then we also have the social transition. And it's quite difficult to say where we're going when we're talking about trade policy, we're talking about decarbonization, we're talking about promotion structures, how exactly can we decarbonize industry. It's not always very clear. I would once again like to call on all European Works Councils, please steam ahead. We really need support. We need to be quicker. Countries in Asia want to send green steel onto the European market under unfair competition conditions. We have to nonetheless go to our management and we have to say that we need to be at the forefront. Please release the investments we need to make this possible. We need policies as well at European as well as German level to make sure that we can steam ahead with this transition. And that's why, once again, I would like to raise this point. Please make sure that we have the good jobs that exist in the European steel industry that are maintained, that they do not disappear. Thank you very much. Furthermore, we also have the social transition, and within the ThyssenKrupp, we have talked about how we humanize work. Now, how do we understand this? We want work to be part of life, that it's something that adds to the richness of life. It's not just a work-life balance, but it's work-life integration. This is also a major challenge. In heavy industry, the jobs are very different. On one hand, we have administrative jobs that can be done from home that lend themselves to telework. You have opportunities there that can be leveraged where you can have a better compatibility with your private life. You have hybrid possibilities as well that can also work better. The coordination between colleagues who are at the workplace, those who are home, and we can use IT tools to make that better. However, then we also have the colleagues who are at the workplace working with high temperature ovens. And believe me, you can't take that oven with you home. So we have to make sure that all of this can work. So what else does management have to do? Just
a couple of years ago, the management actually recognized that there are heterogeneities here. They have set up a new way of work body where we ensure that good working conditions apply to all. And as Works Council within the steel sector, we have to be part of these discussions and we have to bring forth the necessary initiatives as well. When we're talking about interviews, we've had face-to-face interviews with our colleagues, and we've asked them what their needs are, because new models of work actually begin with workers. We have to ask them, what do you need? What sort of tasks, what sort of actions must your employer undertake to ensure that you can do your job better, that you are more satisfied with your work, and you are, of course, working in safe conditions as well. When we're talking about the working environment, they have to be set up in a social fashion, in a communicative fashion. You have 24-hour facilities operating 7 days a week. You have shift work, and you have the different colleagues on the same shift that are like one family. This is a very strong social bond that must be maintained. We must not only promote it, we must strengthen it, and we must give colleagues the possibility that work in these very demanding shift work that can also take a major toll on their health. It's not good that this continues to occur. They're working a night shift, for example. We must make sure that we must put things in place that protect these colleagues. When we're talking about pensions as well, we say that, well, to remain competitive, people need to work longer. Some colleagues work in these shift conditions for 40, 45 years. I mean, hats off to them, but it cannot go on longer than that. And we have to keep this in mind. We have to protect this. Now, a few examples of how we hope to achieve this. We have some pilot projects that we have tabled. We've said that, well, okay, these are topics that colleagues find important. We have production facilities as well, where we have young fathers, young mothers, young families that perhaps need the opportunity to have a sabbatical, to have more flexible working arrangements. You know, there are possibilities where you must be there at the beginning of a shift so that the shift model works, but we need more flexibility there as well. You might perhaps give a greater possibility for people to exchange shifts, maybe to have days off where they can exchange weekend days at work, for example, with others to make things more manageable with their family life. We have to bring across a collegiality, a sort of collective approach here as well, to make all of this possible. And at the same time, what we have to push for is inclusion. This is something that we've been doing for many years within our group, and this is very important in terms of the different abilities, but also in terms of diversity. This is something we have to continue to work on. We have to make sure that we have everybody on board. Now, of course, all of this only works if there is a co-decision. We have national law that ensures that decisions are taken together with employees, and we have to continue to strengthen this, and I really do hope that we will have stronger joint decision making across Europe, that we can strengthen the role of works councils in other European countries as well, and that these pilot projects that we are testing can in fact be implemented at a greater scale, where we can have employee representatives and employers actually coming together to find the solutions we need. Thereafter, this is also one of the preconditions, really, and as a representative of trade unions, we need to strengthen democracy. We need greater democracy within our workplaces, and this applies not just before the European elections, but all national elections as well. When we're talking about social issues, we have to make sure that we do everything in our power to strengthen this democracy.
We do have an opportunity for some questions now, so if anyone would... Yes, please. I think I can't see the number there.
One, two, three.
Yeah. Sometimes you... I think it's on, yeah.
I will press here. Hello. My name is Ioana Özmen. I'm a member of
Come
Romanian...
closer to the microphone a little bit.
I'm a member of Romanian Parliament and Secretary of Industry Committee and Rapporteur of Hydrogen Group. I have a question for you because to make the possible to decarbonize all the industry, we need to acting. But all the panelists explain we need a signal market, we need to design our future, and we need also to discuss how we can use the human resources what we have in Europe. What is important for me, because I'm from the east of Europe, is important to reduce the difference between West and East. This is very important. It's important also what we are doing with the youngest. And for this reason, the youngest were between 15 years old and 25 years old. We need to increase the percent of this young people to oriented for to using, let's see, in the future, the technology. Technology.
I'm going to ask you to come to a question.
Technology and investments is very important. My question for you is how you thinking in the future, because you mentioned also the pilot project is also the key for the future. How you believe in the new European Parliament, our purpose for EPP Group will be implemented? Thank you.
Yeah, I think that was for you, Maurice.
Ja, ich danke für die Frage erstmal.
Thank you for the question. First of all, I think the workforce and the labour market need to be understood at the European level. We have good collective bargains and good wage levels, no question, but we are struggling for labour. It's a homemade problem. We already identified it 40 years ago, and then perhaps 7 years ago as a company we started up a project in Spain in socially vulnerable regions with high youth unemployment. We went along and said, get trained, come to us in Germany, we can recruit you, we'll help you with the removal costs, we'll pay those. And I think many companies at a European level could push things further, especially big companies with lots of resources, and that would secure jobs and decarbonisation for the future.
The question in 220 there from the gentleman here, I think 182 here. We'll take two at a time and we'll try and get to the rest. Please be quick with your questions and we'll take quick answers, sir.
Yes, thank you. I'm Tom Deleu. I'm the General Secretary of the European Federation of Building and Woodworkers. I have two questions. First is, I was very interested on the Eurofound study on quality of jobs, 30% being unquality jobs or non-quality jobs. Is there a link with a lot of subcontracting? Because many of the issues you mentioned sound very familiar to us in construction when it's about long working hours, even long working days, salaries, issue with salaries, issue with social protection, underprotected, issues also with unhealthy and unsafe jobs, as Esther mentioned, the tragic accident in Italy earlier this week. And the second question, also relating a little bit to this, and the question for the Commission, is I hear a lot about the social dimension of the single market. And maybe it's good also to look back and remember what Juncker said in 2014 already. We should get rid of the Far West in the internal market. Well, there is still a lot of Far West, and it's happening in subcontracting chains. Is the Commission considering that in the next period that there should be, particularly for certain industries who are fraud sensitive, that specific measures are needed, for example, to limit subcontracting? Thank you.
We will put those questions to Barbara and Adriana in a second. Can we keep it to one question, though, from now on, please? 182.
Thanks. Vielen Dank, Sigrid Schrammel.
Thank you, Sigrid Schrammel, Secretary General of the European Centre for Worker Questions. Christian organisations across Europe, capacity building to strengthen social dialogue. Thank you for organising this conference. I'd like to pick up on what Moritz Engels said at the end. looking ahead to the European elections, the prospects for the European Parliament quite appalling. Rise in right-wing populist support. We hear a lot of solutions proposed for the difficulties the European Union is facing. But why do people not believe us? 25%, 30% of European citizens do not believe that the EU can solve these social problems, help them. The social market economy does not really care about them or help them. That is what they believe. There are many people that don't enjoy robust labour conditions, and that is why they are more tempted to vote for populist parties. So my question is, what do we need to do differently? How do we reach out to those citizens that believe that populist parties will better defend their rights, even though the exact opposite is true? And how do we tackle this mammoth task in such a short space of time?
Barbara, the first question was for Eurofund.
Yes. So the question, construction sector, or rather, is there a link between a lot of subcontracting in certain sectors and the job quality that we see in that sector? And I would argue, and what we see from our data, it's very clear, yes, there is a link. And the link goes very often through the lack of social dialogue and collective bargaining in those companies that are subcontracted to do the work. And I think Moritz Engels can maybe confirm that also for the German situation, where we have in principle very strong social dialogue and good collective bargaining coverage. But if that is lacking, then we see a clear link with poorer working conditions in the companies, and then linked to that again poorer work outcomes. So clearly a link between subcontracting and job quality.
Thank you, Barbara. A quick comment from Adriana.
Well, very interesting question, but I cannot commit the next Commission on its work program, unfortunately. But it's really an important one, and using our agency, Eurofund, on the analytical work, we're really deciding where the biggest problems are and how we can approach it. And clearly, if there is a long subcontracting chain, it's difficult to identify who is responsible sometimes. And that's an issue which I understand perfectly well, but I cannot commit the new Commission for that, sorry. And there was this statement about the labour conditions and the fact that not everybody is enjoying good working conditions and so on. I agree with that. We have a lot of efforts with the European Labour Authority to reduce abuse in workplace. There are more than 150 inspections jointly conducted. There is, for me, no space for poor and very unacceptable conditions, working conditions in Europe in 21st century, and this is part of the Charter of Fundamental Rights principles. I believe that we can fight disinformation, which is coming very widely, especially now before elections, from all angles in relation to what Europe does and what Europe does not do for people, by informing people what Europe does for them and for their daily lives.
Thanks, Adriana. A quick comment from you, Moritz, if you like.
Yes. Ich glaube, es geht an der Stelle genau darum, dass Europa und die...
At this point, I think European policymakers and European policies must show what they can do. As a private individual, you don't really know enough of what's going on there. And maybe also someone might say that, well, this is an international context and maybe it's too complicated, I won't understand anything anyway. But there we have an opportunity to show that Europe is united, and I think that's very important, and I think that Europe stands for its citizens, and I think that can do a lot of good.
Questions that we wanted to get questions in this event, so we'll run just slightly over. I'm going to start with 125 and 153. Yeah, the lady in blue.
Thank you very much. I'm a Cassandra, member of the Cult Committee. I have one comment. I would like to thanks to Comesse for initiative for Sunday, for Free Sunday, for all workers. I think it's very important. Maybe we should, as EPP, more raised this program. And my question is maybe to DG ERC, because we as members of Good Committee, we often face to the ask of the Social and Ample Committee to protect more young people who participate in traineeship. For us, for me, the traineeship is an opportunity to have more experience, to get more experience in the conditions that are possible, sometimes very good remunerate, very good. In any case, we ask for decent conditions, of course, but it is not possible to ensure full paid traineeship. So my question is, what is your position? Thank you.
Thank you. We'll come to the gentleman at 153.
Danke fürs Wort. Mein Name ist Norbert Sieber. Ich bin Mitglied des österreichischen
Norbert Sieber. I'm a member of the Austrian Parliament, and I'd like to express my satisfaction that so many young people are present at this EPP Conference. It's just great that so many young people have found the time to be here today.
Darüber gesprochen.
Denis Radke has mentioned that industry in Europe faces really major challenges, and in all the topics that we've discussed here, we mustn't forget that eco-social market economy that characterises Europe is closely enmeshed with national industry, with all that implies for social and economic prosperity in Europe. We mustn't forget that this is part of it. There's been discussion of subsidiarity and solidarity. I'd like to add personality. We must deal with questions such as, what can I do for this Europe? What can I contribute to making Europe strong for the long term? And the term work or labour shouldn't be seen against the backdrop of compulsion, but life affirming. Work is important, and I'd like to work. I think industry can do a lot to contribute to that. We've talked about demographics. Yes, one of the answers on demography must be that in certain areas, not everywhere, but in certain areas, we'll have to work longer. That has to be a component part of the discussion and response. A topic that wasn't mentioned that I'd like to mention is the birth rate. Young people, if you ask them, do you want 3 children? Don't. They, on average, end up with 1.5 children, and politicians need to answer why it's not possible to get beyond that. I've got other points I'd like to have mentioned. By way of a conclusion, we must do significantly more to strip back red tape. We're always talking about it. People are expecting a response. Please, let's give business in Europe an answer about what that means.
The question, I think, was for you again, Adriana.
Thank you very much. I fully agree that the working conditions for traineeships should be as anybody, and they should be really of good quality. We're working now on the quality framework for traineeships, and we hope that we'll be able to present it before the end of this legislature. It is planned for adoption by the College on the 27th of March. So the colleagues are finalizing the text, and I truly believe that this will be one of the latest deliverables to start negotiating and discussing, putting the good conditions as one of the basic principles of any traineeship. And I'm also very glad to see that many young people here. That's really to be acclaimed. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Adriana. We'll come to number 93 here. There was someone else. This is the gentleman. Yeah, and oh yeah, sorry, 119 afterwards.
Ja, mein Name ist Thomas Huber.
Thomas Huber. I come from the Bavarian Parliament, and I'm speaker there on social issues. Thank you for the clear statement on protecting Fridays, Father Barrios Prieto. Protecting Sundays, rather. Thank you to Father Barrios Prieto. We are perhaps the last region in Europe to protect protect Sunday rest. We need to make life easier for people rather than weighing more red tape on them. I appreciate the previous speaker for his words, and I would like to express a wish in relation to the changed labour landscape. We hear a lot about demographic change, digitalisation. Now, the digital transformation will completely change our working environment. Other speakers have mentioned this. Moritz, for example. And that means that workers need more qualifications. We need to look at further professional training. That really needs to be a key focus, a key tool in European policy. It should be part of the European Social Fund. We really need to cut back on the red tape and bureaucracy linked to further training. Whether it's in Germany, Austria or other countries, we need to do more here. So social policy should create jobs, and that is something we really need to focus on. We need to ensure that it is clear that social policies create jobs and protect jobs, but please cut down on the red tape.
Number 119.
Thank you very much for inviting us and for giving us the floor. I am Baptiste Vasseur from ENSI, the European Network of Social Integration Enterprises, a subset of the social economy. And in the past, I was a social worker for several years. During my experience as a social worker, on top of experiencing very difficult working conditions, I've also testified the failures of the labor market that increase the number of what we call the target groups. So the target groups is a manner to talk about persons who are involuntarily excluded from the labor market. I've seen isolated mothers, people affected by mental illness, people with disabilities. I've also seen migrants with a lot of talent. In the market, there is a type of organization that are called the social economy organization, who are champion in creating a labor market suited for the specific needs of the disadvantaged workers. My question is simple. What is the EPP strategy for the social economy? And I have a suggestion, the appointment of a commissioner responsible of social economy and the renewal of the social economy intergroup.
Thank you. I might let Dennis pick up on that. Being a member of the EPP group, he's going to give us some comments at the end. There were some more questions, please. Can I have hands up for all the final questions now, because we'll wrap up the event. Any more? Then it's just you. Thank you. 189.
Thank you very much. My name is Clotilde Clark-Foulquier. I'm Deputy Secretary General of Euro-Diaconia, a network of 58 organizations providing social and health services on a Christian basis across Europe. It's more a comment, I'm afraid, than a question. But we heard a lot about what has been achieved in the current mandate of the European Commission. We heard from Mrs. Sukova that it's really good. The employment rate is really high. Unemployment has been so low in a long time. But I just would like you to hear the voice of all members and what we see on the ground. What we see is that we have had an increase in 2022 for the demand of social services by 40%. Homelessness keeps increasing in Europe for 15 years now. So we really face a social crisis. Real wage in the EU have decreased by 3.7% according to the annual growth survey. So the social market economy as it is not working, and it's not getting better. So if I can ask a question to Mr. Radke, is how can you ensure that the EPP will do better in the future? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Before I invite Dennis up, I'm going to ask Esther. You've heard a lot up here. I wonder if you'd like to come in, and also Father Manuel as well. I'll give you an opportunity to speak. Yeah.
I'm tempted to recall history, which was that Sunday used to be normal working, and that was got rid of as unnecessary red tape. So just to be careful when we say about getting rid of unnecessary red tape, the trade unions do not believe and will not accept that that's getting rid of any employment rights whatsoever or any of the provisions that help us to protect workers' rights. We're absolutely a strong ally to get rid of unnecessary systems, to do it more through digitalisation. We're allies for that, but what we are not allies for, be very clear, and I've been talking everywhere about that. That it's that we're with you, but not if this is a coded discussion about a downward pressure for employment rights. The trade unions, we have a federation, Uni Europa, who's strongly campaigning for the Sunday Alliance and who's in favour of that. And there's an awful lot of research that demonstrates that a common day off has huge benefits on the psychological well-being of workers. Simply being able to cook a meal for your family, to be able to participate in sports, to be able to plan to be somewhere every weekend has a huge benefit. So to say, there's a lot of research, and I'd encourage you to take part of the discussion to back us in this directive on psychosocial risks and to think about that in that context. There's only one other point I would like the opportunity to make, and I didn't have a chance because I cut short, but to say about the human in control principle for AI, and I think that's also work that we could do a lot together on. There was a really interesting question asked early on, which was about, we're having all this discussion about what's needed for a just transition and for a social market economy that cares, where across the road the governments are discussing the new economic governance rules and they've just adopted them. Or what they've said, now it goes to the Parliament. And that's a real problem if there isn't an EU-wide investment tool, and that's exactly the question I see was asked from Romania. We need an investment tool at European level to make sure that companies can make the just transition. And that investment tool should come with conditionalities to address the subcontracting chain. So if a company wins a contract to build a hospital or a school or a road, they shouldn't be able to contract that out to dangerous practices. So we're looking for an EU investment tool. Strong social conditionalities, but also, as the colleagues said from the Works Councils, and trade is part of this discussion as well, because we're not doing anything for industries or for the environment or for workers' rights if we create unmanageable dependencies and also dependencies with countries that have very, very bad human rights and environmental records. It's counterproductive to do that. So that needs to be part of a discussion about trade. So we need a comprehensive industrial policy that's as much about homes, schools, hospitals, jobs, just transition, anticipation of change, collective bargaining, social dialogue. And trade unions are ready for that discussion. We've done a lot of work on identifying what's needed, and we're prepared for that. And we very much hope that the EPP sees us as a welcome partner for that dialogue. So thank you.
Thanks, Esther. We'll just have a final comment from you, Father Manuel, as well, to let you respond to what you've heard.
Well, the very, very interesting questions and contributions. Just to quote one that really, I think it's something that that concerns all of us, worries us also in relation to the topic we're discussing this afternoon. And it was the question about the rise of the populist right wing, the possible rise of populist right-wing parties in the coming elections to the Parliament. So I think obviously this is a concern. It was said in the question that there is like a lack of trust that the European Union can help workers or can create just conditions for workers. So I think this is something that we have to work on. It's a concern. I don't know if it's a failure in communication. It's a failure in policies. It's a failure in being in touch with the people. But this is obviously a question that we have to ask ourselves.
Thank you very much indeed. We're going to turn now to Denis Radko for some final comments. He'll pick up on some of the questions which were broadly related to how is the EPP Group going to secure sort of a positive social market economy change as we go forward after the elections. Dennis.
Ja, vielen Dank. Ich werde das auf Deutsch machen.
Thank you very much. I'll just use German. Now, the specific questions on the social market economy. We are reaching the end of this legislative period, and we have two very important sectors in our view, and I think we made significant progress here. Firstly, we've been able to make significant progress in terms of improving things in terms of the social market economy. We've been able to improve things. We've been able to get legislation pushed through Parliament, and Ms. von der Leyen has signed off on it as well. And in the future, we're going to be able to build on this in the next legislative period. So that's one area. And thereafter, another important topic is mental health. It's a very broad topic. It has a number of different effects and consequences for companies as well. At the moment, we have so many people all across Europe suffering from mental illness. And in this legislative period, we have worked significantly on it, and we will have to continue to do so in the next one as well. So, in terms of conclusion, firstly, I would like to thank all the guests who have been here today, those who participated in the discussion, those who contributed to this very important topic. And then in terms of the upcoming legislative period, the next legislative period, well, for us it's going to be about striking a balance within the EPP. How exactly do we find an equilibrium? The colleague from Austria talked about solidarity and subsidiarity. It's very important for us to underline this and underline that these are two sides of the same coin. When some only talk about subsidiarity, one goes with the other, in fact. So it's important for us to really refresh people on the Christian values and Christian lessons to be drawn. And I think that helps. In terms of the work for the next legislative period, I think that's going to be something that guides our work. Now, especially in terms of those who say that, well, why aren't you the front runners when it comes to certain topics? Well, it's because we have to play to our strengths as the EPP group. We always try and ensure that all interests are balanced within the EPP. We are not a workers' party. For example, my party isn't a workers' party. It's not an employers' party either. But it is our job to make sure that all interests are sufficiently and well represented. I think that is our job. And the output on many of the topics that we have talked about, minimum wage, platform work, the European Works Council directive, all of this has come thanks to demands from the industry, and we're making sure that employees have a stronger voice here as well. And it's not just about beautiful words and speeches, but it's about actually getting the job done. It's not just about political speeches, but about getting the work done. So thank you very much to everyone here. We see that the Thyssen Group is doing some great work, and so we want to talk about this within a broader group as well. And keeping in mind the 9th of June, we hope that we will be able to talk to you once again, talking about our great results and our success. But we wish you all the very best, and we look forward to building on what we've already built and also starting new discussions as well. Thank you very much.
Yeah, just want to say a thanks to the EPP Group events team who've put this on, and to the interpreters, and to everyone for coming and joining. There will be a cocktail which you'll be directed to, so everyone can get together and have a chat. Thank you very much indeed.